I want to show everyone how we would take our template model from QML and turn this into an actual C++ model, integrating that into our QML. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new file. And the file I'm going to add is going to be a Qt item model. I'm going to give this class a name. And I'm going to change its base type to be a Q abstract list model. Now, what this wizard is going to do for us is it's going to set up a very basic Q abstract list model based on what we check off here. We are not going to use a table, so we're not going to need the header view, and we're not editing or dynamically fetching any of the data, so we aren't going to check those because we don't need the templates for those provided. So once we go through here, it's going to add it to our project for us, and now we have a very simple template of the model here. The model for what we need to do, we need to implement two functions for our model to work correctly here. The first one is row count, which simply just tells the view how many items are in the data set. The next item that we have to implement is we have to implement this data function. The data function is going to take a Q model index or a location in our view, and it is also going to take a role. We have to provide the names of the roles because we are using QML. And we're going to do that in a minute. But what that's going to do is it takes those two, and then it returns the appropriate data for that location based on the role it was requested. So I'm going to go to my header here, and I am going to make for us a Q string list. And this is going to be what actually stores our data. I'm going to call it mlist. We're going to need two other things here because we are doing this in QML. First, I will need to create an enum, and I'm going to call this enum roles. I will give this enum the role names that we want to use for our model. But these are not the ones that are going to be exposed to QML because it's an enum, so it has to be an int. So we're going to do name role, and we're going to set this equal to Qt user role. Anytime we make custom roles, we want to start at Qt user role because Qt itself provides several pre-made roles for different conditions. Now that we have this roles, as I mentioned, this is an int. And on the QML side, we are sending a string. So we're going to also need to make this function called role names. And what role names is going to do is it's going to translate our enum into what QML is going to provide as the string. And we do this by overriding this function here. It's Q hash int Q byte array. And the function is called role names. And it's a const override. Now, here in this function, I am going to just right click here and I'm going to have it, oops, let me remove this unneeded semicolon. I'm going to right click here and go to the refactor menu and tell it I just want to add a definition in our color model class. Now we're going to make this roles name. Now the roles name function is really easy to make. We are going to make a Q hash, and it's going to be a Q hash int byte array. We'll call it roles, which is the name of our enum, right? Yeah. So we'll change this to role names. Our enum here. Let's change it roles names. All right, so we're going to make we're just going to make this hash here, and we're going to add to our hash. We're going to add all of the values of our enum and what we want them to be called. So for our name role, Here, we're going to want that to be called what we called it in our QML model, since we want this to be able to be dropped in. And in our QML model, we called this name. So we're just going to put name here. And then the last thing we have to do is, when we're done adding all our roles, is return our roles. So that takes care of that. Now, the next thing that we can implement, because we know what our data is this QString list, is we can do row count. For row count's really easy. We're just going to do mlist.size, and we're going to return this. That's it. So that one's done. The next function that we have to implement is going to be data. And for data, what we're going to do here, now that we have our roles, is we're just going to switch based on role. And we're going to do a case if we have name role. And that's going to return mlist at index.row. Of course, we also want to have a default here. And our default is just going to return Q variant. And that's just in case we're provided with a role that we don't know what it is. Now, if we run this, we're almost there. We need to populate our list somehow, which is the thing we're going to do next. And then we also need to register our new list. So in order to populate, I have a file here. So I'm going to include a Q file, and we're just going to open that file and read it. So I'm going to put the file inside of our resources. I'm going to right-click on the resource and just click Add Existing Files. And I'm going to select my colors.txt file. This is the file that I pasted out of last time when we made the model. So for this, we're going to do Q file. We'll give it the path that we want to read. And then we're going to say file.open. And we're going to set the open mode to open only, or read only, sorry. QIO device, read only. And what we want to do is we're going to want to do, if we're able to open this in read only mode, then we want to do something. So if we're able to, while we are at the file not end, open, read only. While we are not at the end of the file, what we are going to do is we are going to make a QString. This QString we'll call line, and we will feed it file.readLine. This is going to put a line into the QString. Now, all of our lines, they may end with a terminator. And we don't want this in there. So if it ends with a /n, new line terminator, we're just going to remove that by doing line chop 1, which is just going to remove the last item here. Otherwise, we're going to do mlist.append line. So that's it. We're just going to load it in. This should load our line for us. The next thing that we have to do to see if this is working is we're going to have to register this. So I'm going to include our color model. I'm going to create an instance of our color model. We'll call it color model with a lowercase c. And then I need to expose this. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in order to do that, I need to include the QML context like this. And then after the engine is created, I'm going to do engine.root context, set context property. What string do we want it to be? Well, we're just going to call it color model. And the object that we want this label to be associated with is our color model that we just made. And if I type the word model correctly, we're that much closer to being done. The next thing that we have to do is here, we have to simply just replace my model with color model. See, it already knows what it is. The code completion has already suggested it because it's already aware of it now. So there's our color model. And the last thing I could do is run this. And we'll see that when we run this, we're going to have the same exact view that we had before, except that now our data is going to come from C++. And we can add, if we'd like here, let's say a whole bunch of these yellow greens. We'll just add some number of these. Add yellows. Would like to add them as new lines. Say we add a bunch of yellow here. And then if we save this and run this, we can see that our data is in fact coming from this colors text, because at the bottom here, we just see a bunch of yellow ones followed by our black one because it can't determine the color there.
Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to our channel and check out the free QML programming course on our website. The link is in the description.